In part 1, we explored where this ability comes from, how childhood hypervigilance creates people who can read you instantly, how unpredictable environments train children to become experts in humane behavior, not by choice, but by necessity. We talked about the origins, the psychology, the neuroscience, how this skill is carved into someone through survival, not learned from books, but understanding where it comes from is only half the story. Because the real question isn't just why some people can read you instantly. The real question is, what does that ability cost them? What happens when a childhood survival mechanism becomes an adult identity? When the gift that saved you becomes the prison that traps you? That's what we're exploring today. The hidden price, the burden no one sees, the loneliness that comes from seeing too much. Because here's what most people don't understand. When you can read people instantly, you can never stop. You're at a coffee shop, your friend is telling you about their weekend, and you notice the slight hesitation before they mention their partner's name, the way their smile doesn't quite reach their eyes when they describe the dinner they had, the micro-expression of frustration that flashes across their face for just a fraction of a second. And now you know. You know something's wrong in that relationship. You know they're putting on a performance of happiness. You know the truth beneath the words. But they didn't tell you that truth. They chose not to. They said it was great, and you heard the lie underneath. So what do? Do you call it out? Do you ask the question that will make them uncomfortable? Do you pretend you didn't notice and participate in the performance? Most people don't have to make this choice because they don't see the contradiction in the first place. They hear it was great and they move on. The conversation flows naturally, but you're stuck, analyzing, deciding, calculating whether honesty or kindness is the right move. And by the time you've finished that calculation, the moment has passed and you've missed 3 other things they said. This is what it means to read people constantly. You're never fully in the conversation. You're always slightly outside it, watching, interpreting, solving puzzles no one asked you to solve. And that's exhausting because the cost isn't just mental fatigue. It's something deeper, something that reshapes your entire experience of human connection. Let's talk about what this actually looks like in adult life, the specific ways this ability manifests, the patterns that emerge, the price that gets paid, quietly, invisibly, every single day. First, they struggle with trust in relationships, not because they're paranoid, not because they've been deeply betrayed, though many have, but because they see too much. They notice when their partner says, "I love you," but the tone is slightly flat, when their friend says they're happy for them, but there's a flicker of envy in their eyes, when someone promises something, but their body language suggests they're already preparing an excuse. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can't convince yourself you imagined it. You can't go back to innocent trust. So relationships become complicated. Because trust isn't just about whether someone will betray you. It's about whether you can stop analyzing them long enough to actually be with them. Can you accept "I love you" without scanning for the micro-expressions that might contradict it? Can you believe someone's excited for your success without looking for signs of hidden resentment? For most people with this ability, the answer is no. Or at least, not is. Because their nervous system is still running the childhood program that says scanning for threats is how you stay safe. Second, they're often drawn to broken people. This seems counterintuitive. If you can read people so well, why would you choose relationships with people who are struggling, who are in pain, who have obvious wounds? But here's the psychology. Broken people are familiar. Their pain is visible. Their patterns are readable. And for someone whose survival depended on predicting behavior, predictable pain feels safer than unpredictable happiness. Plus, and this is important, broken people need to be read. They need to be understood. They need someone who can see through their defenses and recognize their hurt. And someone with this ability finally has a purpose for their gift. They can help. They can fix. They can use their hypervigilance to be useful instead of just exhausting. But this creates a dangerous pattern. They end up in caretaking relationships where they're constantly managing someone else's emotions, analyzing their triggers, predicting their needs, all while ignoring their own. They become the therapist friend, the partner who always understands, the person everyone leans on because they always seem to know what's wrong before you even say it. And slowly, they forget that relationships are supposed to be mutual, that being seen is supposed to go both ways. Third, small talk feels unbearable. "How are you?" "Fine, thanks." But you can see they're not fine. The tension in their jaw, the darkness under their eyes, the way they're holding their coffee cup like it's the only thing keeping them grounded. And now you're trapped in this painful awareness. Do you honor the social contract and pretend you believe fine? Or do you acknowledge what you're seeing and risk making them uncomfortable? Most people navigate small talk easily because they accept the performance. It's a social ritual, not a truth-telling session. Everyone understands the game, but when you can see through the performance, every casual interaction becomes a minefield, because you're aware of all the unspoken truth hovering beneath the surface pleasantries. You're aware that fine often means barely holding it together. You're aware that busy often means drowning, and you can't unhear it. You can't participate in the ritual without feeling like you're complicit in a collective delusion. So, small talk becomes exhausting, not because it's shallow, but because you can't experience it as shallow. You see the depth that everyone's agreed to ignore, and you're alone in that seeing. Fourth, they feel like permanent outsiders, even in groups of close friends, even in families, even in long-term relationships. There's always this sense of being slightly separate, slightly apart. They're in the room, but they're also observing the room. They're part of the conversation, but they're also analyzing the dynamics. They notice who's competing with whom, who's feeling left out, who's performing confidence while actually feeling insecure. And this awareness creates distance, because being the one who sees everything means you're never fully part of anything. It's like watching a play while simultaneously being in it. You can't lose yourself in the moment because you're too aware of the performance, too aware of the mechanics, too aware of what's really happening beneath what appears to be happening. This creates a profound sense of loneliness. Not the loneliness of being physically alone, but the loneliness of being psychologically alone, of seeing things no one else sees, of carrying awareness that can't be shared because most people don't want to know what you're seeing. Fifth, they struggle to be present. Mindfulness, being in the moment, experiencing life without constant analysis. These aren't just difficult for them, they're almost impossible, because their brain is always scanning, always processing, always interpreting. You're at a party, and instead of enjoying the music and the laughter, you're noticing the couple in the corner whose body language suggests they're fighting, the host who's smiling but exhausted, the friend who's drinking too much to cope with something they're not saying. You can't just be at the party, you can't just experience it, because your nervous system is running a constant threat assessment of everyone in the room, even though there's no actual threat. Research on mindfulness shows that presence requires quieting the analytical mind, letting go of interpretation, simply experiencing what is without adding layers of meaning. But for someone whose survival depended on constant interpretation, letting go of analysis feels like letting go of safety. It feels dangerous, reckless, like voluntarily making yourself vulnerable to threats you won't see coming, so they can't be present. They're always 3 steps ahead or 2 steps behind, but never quite in the moment that's actually happening. 6. They have incredibly complicated relationships with vulnerability. They crave it desperately. They want someone to see them, really see them, the way they see others. They fantasize about someone who can read through their own defenses, who can recognize their pain without them having to perform it. But when someone actually gets close, when someone starts to really see them, they panic. Because vulnerability means being read, and being read means being known, and being known means someone has access to your pattern, your triggers, your wounds, and that access feels like giving someone a weapon they could use against you. So they do this complicated dance. They open up just enough to feel connection, then pull back when it gets too close. They show their real self, then hide behind intellectualization and analysis. They invite someone in, then create distance the moment they feel truly seen. This creates relationships that feel like they're always on the edge of depth but never quite getting there, always approaching intimacy but never fully arriving, always almost vulnerable but not quite. And the people who love them often feel confused, frustrated. They can sense there's more depth available, but they can't access it because the moment they get close, the walls go up. And here's what makes this even more complex, even more painful. When you can read everyone, you start to assume everyone can read you, so you become even more careful, even more controlled, even more masked. Because if you can see through others' performances, surely they can see through yours, right? This creates a kind of hypervigilance about yourself. You're not just monitoring everyone else's micro-expressions and body language. You're monitoring your own, making sure nothing leaks through, making sure the mask stays perfectly in place. You become both the observer and the observed, both the analyst and the subject, and that level of constant self-monitoring is absolutely exhausting. There's a concept in psychology called the spotlight effect. Most people overestimate how much others notice about them. They think everyone's watching their every move, when in reality, most people are too focused on themselves to pay much attention. But for someone who actually does notice everyone's every move, this concept doesn't apply. They know how much can be seen if someone's really watching, so they assume they're being watched with the same intensity they watch others, and that assumption creates a prison where you can never relax, Never let your guard down. Never stop performing because someone might see through it. The irony is devastating. The very skill that makes you so perceptive about others makes you paranoid about being perceived yourself. So what's the cumulative effect of all of this? What happens to a person who lives with these patterns for years? For decades, they become what psychologists might call hyperindependent. They refuse help because asking for it means admitting need. And admitting need means making yourself vulnerable to someone who might use it against you. They struggle with receiving. Compliments feel suspicious. Gifts come with invisible strings. Kindness must have an ulterior motive, because nothing is ever truly free. They intellectualize emotions because feeling them directly is too overwhelming. It's safer to analyze why you feel something than to simply feel it. They have incredibly rich inner lives, but impoverished outer connections. They understand themselves deeply but feel understood by almost no one. And underneath all of it, there's this persistent, painful question. If I stopped analyzing everyone, if I stopped scanning for threats, if I just relaxed and trusted and let myself be present, what would happen? Would everything fall apart? Would I miss the signs of danger? Would someone hurt me because I wasn't vigilant enough? Or would I finally experience the connection I've been craving? Would I finally feel what it's like to be in a relationship without constantly trying to predict its end? Would I finally know what presence feels like? Most people with this ability never find out, because the risk feels too great. Because letting go of the survival mechanism that kept you safe feels like betrayal, like abandoning the child you were who needed that protection. But here's where the story can shift. Here's where understanding becomes the first step towards something different, because this ability, this hypervigilance, this constant reading of people, it doesn't have to be a curse. It started as a gift, a survival gift, and it can become a gift again, just a different kind. The transformation isn't about eliminating the ability. It's not about forcing yourself to stop noticing or pretending you don't see what you see. That's impossible, and, frankly, it would be a loss. The transformation is about shifting from fear-based reading to compassion-based understanding. When you read someone from fear, you're looking for threats, for inconsistencies, for reasons not to trust them. You're building a case, gathering evidence, protecting yourself. But when you read someone from compassion, you're looking for their humanity, their wounds, the reasons behind their masks, not to judge them or protect yourself from them, but to understand them. And that shift, from fear to compassion, changes everything. You still notice the micro-expression of pain, but instead of cataloging it as evidence that they're hiding something from you, you hold it as an invitation to deeper connection. You recognize it as human, as something you do to. You still see when someone's performing authenticity, but instead of feeling disgusted by the fakeness, you understand why they need to perform. Because you know what it feels like to be unsafe in your real self. You know why people wear masks. You still catch all the contradictions between what people say and what their body reveals, but instead of using that information to stay distant and protected, you use it to offer grace. To meet people where they are, even when you can see where they're really struggling. Carl Jung said, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. And maybe that's the key. When you stop seeing people's defenses as threats to your safety and start seeing them as evidence of their pain, you become someone who can hold space for human complexity without judgment. Not because you're naive, not because you can't see the truth, but because you can see the truth and choose compassion anyway. This is the transformation from hypervigilance to emotional wisdom, from survival skill to genuine gift, from weapon to bridge. And here's what that looks like practically. First, you learn to name what you're doing. When you notice you're analyzing someone, you pause. You say to yourself, I'm scanning for threats right now. Am I actually in danger? Or is this old programming? This creates space between the impulse and the action, between the survival response and the conscious choice. You don't have to stop noticing. You just have to stop reacting as if every observation is evidence of danger. Second, you practice presence with compassion for yourself, not by forcing yourself to stop seeing, but by seeing and choosing to stay anyway. By noticing someone's mask and deciding to engage with them as if you don't see it. By giving them the gift of being accepted at face value, even though you see deeper. This isn't dishonesty, it's generosity, because everyone deserves to be met where they are, not where you can see they're hiding. Third, you extend to yourself the same compassion you're learning to give others. Your hypervigilance isn't a flaw. Your constant analysis isn't a problem. These are adaptations that kept you safe when safety wasn't guaranteed. They make you extraordinarily perceptive, deeply empathetic, and capable of understanding people in ways most others never will. The goal isn't to become someone who doesn't see, it's to become someone who sees with love instead of fear. Fourth, you find your people. Not everyone will appreciate being seen so clearly. Not everyone can handle the depth you naturally operate in, and that's okay. But there are people out there who will feel relief when you see through them, who will exhale when they realize they don't have to perform with you, who will recognize in you a fellow traveler who also learned to survive by watching. Those are your people, and they're worth the wait. So if you're someone who can read people instantly, if you've always been able to see what others miss, if you carry this ability that feels more like a burden than a gift, I want you to know something important. You're not broken, you're not too intense, you're not paranoid or damaged. Beyond repair, you're someone who learned to survive in an environment where reading people correctly meant safety, where missing a signal could mean danger, where hypervigilance was intelligence, not illness, and that survival strategy worked. It kept you alive, it got you here, it protected you when no one else could or would. But you're not in that environment anymore. The situation has changed even if the feeling hasn't caught up yet. You're safe now, or at least safer, and the skill that saved you then can evolve into something different now. Something that connects instead of protects. Something that understands instead of defends. You can learn to see people not as puzzles to solve or threats to assess, but as humans who are also doing their best, who are also wearing masks because they're scared, who are also performing because authenticity once felt dangerous to them too. And when you make that shift, when you move from fear-based reading to compassion-based understanding, something beautiful happens. You stop feeling so alone because instead of seeing through people in a way that separates you from them, you start seeing them in a way that connects you to them. You recognize your own patterns in their defenses. You see your own wounds in their masks. You understand your own fear in their guardedness. And suddenly you're not the only one who sees. You're not the outsider looking in. You're a human among humans. All of you trying to navigate vulnerability in a world that often punishes it. The price of reading everyone is real. It's loneliness. It's exhaustion. It's the burden of seeing too much and being seen by too few. But the gift is real too. It's deep empathy. It's genuine understanding. It's the capacity to hold space for human complexity without judgment, and now you get to choose what to do with it. You can keep using it as a weapon to protect yourself, to stay distant, to gather evidence of why people can't be trusted, to maintain the walls that keep you safe but also keep you alone. Or you can transform it into a bridge, into something that connects you to the very people you once needed to defend against, into wisdom that serves instead of isolates. The ability to read people instantly isn't the curse. The curse is carrying that ability in fear instead of in love. The curse is using it to stay safe instead of to create connection. But you don't have to carry it that way anymore. You survived. The child who learned to read every micro-expression to stay safe, that child did their job perfectly. They got you here. You're alive. You made it. And now, as an adult, you get to do something that child never could. You get to choose differently. You get to use this gift not to survive, but to truly live. Not in constant vigilance, not in perpetual analysis, but in connection, in presence, in the messy, imperfect, absolutely beautiful experience of being seen and seeing others with compassion. That's the price you paid. Years of hype, years of isolation, years of seeing everything while feeling invisible yourself. But that's also what it gave you. The ability to understand people in ways most never will. The capacity for profound empathy. The gift of truly seeing beneath the masks we all wear. And maybe, just maybe, that's worth something after all.